Hi everyone, Aidan here with eTrailer. Today we're going to be taking a look at this eTrailer square pipe mount jack. This is going to be a pretty heavy duty jack that mounts up to a pipe mount and allows you to use it on your trailer. Let's check it out. It's got a 7,000 pound lift capacity and an 8,000 pound support capacity, which really just means it can statically support 8,000 pounds, but if you needed to raise it up to get it onto your vehicle, it only has a 7,000 pound capacity. So just make sure you're not overloading it when you're actively lifting, but if you're leaving it on a job site or something and it needs to just sit there for a little bit, you can load it up with a little more. But that large size and heavy weight capacity means it's going to be better for probably some work trailers. Our teardrop camper here is not the best example of that today, but it could work if you had maybe a bigger trailer with this style of mount. Now, one of the other impressive things about this jack is the amount of lift it has. So from the center of the pipe mount to the bottom of the footplate, when this is all fully retracted, it's going to be 14.5 inches. And then with all that fully extended, it'll be 29.5 inches. So just with the crank alone here, you've got 15 inches of screw travel. But in addition to all that, there's this drop leg. It's a secondary pin with a secondary tube that can drop down, and that's going to have 13.5 inches of travel. So when you pair those two measurements together, you get nearly 30 inches of lift, which is pretty crazy. The drop leg is going to help just quickly deploy this so you're not sitting there cranking this very far to deploy it, which is going to help with the overall convenience. But if you did happen to park on some uneven terrain, maybe say your driveway even, and you've got that greater slope, this is going to help get you that extra travel to make sure it's sitting and your trailer is level still. So as I set this down onto our jack stand, I just need to get a little bit of weight off of that foot. I can come down here, pull this clip and pin, and slide that drop leg back up and repin it in place. So it just speeds up the process of deploying this or retracting it. One of the advantages of a pipe mounted swivel jack like this though is the ease of use. When it's all said and done, lift it up, you can swing it to the side and repin it, but you'll see that on our trailer today that just doesn't work, and it's a clearance issue. If you've got this on a smaller trailer, that's something you'll likely run into as well. So the measurements we gave earlier from the center of that pipe mount to the bottom of the footplate when fully retracted will help give you clearance on that end. But from that same point to the very top of the jack here is going to be 10.5 inches. So that'll give you your clearance measurements on the top end. It's pretty close on our trailer today, but it's just something to look out for depending on where you choose to mount this up or where you already have the pipe mount sitting. But the nice thing is, if it's really that much of a concern and you don't have the clearance issues, but this is the one you want, then you could just fully remove it, put it in the back of your truck while it's in transport, and then when you're ready to take it off of the truck again, just reattach it. It's really simple, and that means you don't have to have the perfect sized one to fold up. You can just take it off if you don't need it. It is a sidewind handle, which is really good if you've got obstructions on the front of your trailer, let's say like the trailer itself or maybe a toolbox, because it can sit a lot closer to that jack without it interfering with this handle, which does have an 8.5 inch turning diameter. Compare that to something like a top wind, which would be easier for me to reach at this height, but generally that's going to stick out a lot further and have more clearance issues with things like toolboxes. So I think this is going to be a pretty good fit for most people, especially if your trailer sits a little taller than this one. The handle free spins as well, so I don't have to ever readjust my grip as I'm using this. Just makes it a little bit easier, and all the internals feel super smooth. And to keep it operating smoothly, there is a grease zerk on the front where we can apply that grease and keep all those gears moving smoothly on the inside. The outer surface is painted black, and the inner tube and the footplate, those more bare spots, are zinc plated. All of that will help this with rust and corrosion, just protecting it over time and keeping it looking nice and operating smoothly. And the welded-on footplate at the bottom is really large, 8 inches by 6 inches, giving this a really wide footprint on the ground So if you are parking on softer terrain where you're worried about it sinking in, the bigger the footplate, the better you're going to get sitting on that terrain and not sinking into it. Now, as far as the installation goes, you've got a couple different ways you can do this. Our trailer already had an existing pipe mount on here that we just slid this over and pinned it into place. Pretty simple and straightforward. On the jack, the inner diameter of that mount is 2 inches and the outer diameter is 2.5 inches. The reason I mentioned that outer diameter is because this actually does come with a Weld-On bracket. The Weld-On bracket, though, is quite a bit larger, so if you went this route and put this somewhere on your trailer, you would need the room for it, obviously. This trailer wouldn't be quite big enough on the frame, but this larger tube would actually go on the outside of this mount, whereas right now we're going on the inside with our current mount. But both work just fine, and if you don't like to weld or don't have the ability to, there is a third option, which is the etrailer bolt-on pipe jack mount. This would bolt onto the side of your trailer frame, again, wherever you see fit, using included hardware, and this smaller diameter here, that 2-inch diameter, would fit just like this one does here. The thing I'll advise you against with this is while it may be more convenient for you to install, it's got its own weight capacity of 3,500 pounds, so you would not be getting the full performance out of this particular jack, which if it's only on a small trailer like this, then sure, you're probably fine. If you like the features on this jack with that drop leg, the really great travel, and just having the more stout frame, then sure, this will work just fine. Just make sure you don't overload this if that's what you're using to install it. But that really wraps it up. Overall, it's a pretty solid jack. The things I'd say to look out for, like we mentioned, is just the size. If you're putting this on a small trailer, you're gonna have clearance issues probably. But if you need that heavier weight capacity, that really wide footplate, and the large amount of travel with the drop leg, then I think this option is gonna be the perfect fit. Thanks for watching.